Hello and welcome back to the Cozy Design Studio, or if you're new here, welcome. My name is Nick, and I like to talk about all things cozy. Today we're going to be exploring the many cozy games that are perfect for a cold fall day inside. So, let's get into it. Garden Story follows our protagonist, Concord the Grape, and don't worry, the puns don't end here, but we follow Concord on their journey to become the town guardian. Fresh out of the kindergarten, we are quickly ushered into our new role by the current town guardian and generally the town leader, Plum. Now, Plum has recently found out that a nearby town needs their help, and so they're off on their own adventure, but obviously they can't leave your town totally unguarded from the muck, which is slowly but surely encroaching more and more. As it turns out, in this world, the kind of spirit of the town decides who the next guardian will be from birth, and so your destiny has been decided for you. A bit like the Avatar, I guess, or if we're sticking with our comparison from earlier, Link. So after delivering this rather world-shattering information, Plum is off, and now it's your responsibility to take care of the town the best you can, with the help of your begrudging friend Rana, who is a frog. Get it? Anyway, Rana kind of helps you learn the ropes and guides you very generally through the narrative. Now, the gameplay is far more classic Zelda than it is Stardew, so that means that you're exploring the new world and fighting off monsters as they get in your way. However, there is a concerted focus on helping the town, so every day you have new tasks posted on the town bulletin board. Things like, go take care of the scary vines over there, or bring me 5 stones, things like that. And as you go, you uncover new parts of the map and gain new, stronger weapons and strategically apply different buff loadouts to make your life easier for whatever lies ahead. And the way the buffs are handled, I think, is actually really cool. They're framed as memories that you unlock by doing different feats. You get a couple right off the bat after the tutorial, but then you're on your own. And I think this is a really interesting take on the classic Zelda-like. It feels like a bit of a combination between classic Zelda and a bit of a Dark Souls or other action RPG where you have to balance your stats for combat and manage stamina and health potions. But the twist of having each memory basically be a different buff loadout with 0 switching cost is quite the interesting one. It takes a mechanic that I generally don't get along with too well because I'm not really one for min-maxing and I always have 0 idea if I'm spending my points on the right thing or not. But with this system, it doesn't matter because you can always try something else if you don't like the one that you're on, and there's no cost to trying something and getting it wrong. But I think the thing I love about this game, aside from anything mechanical, is the personality it has and all the great character writing. This game really does hinge on its characters. Without them, I think the mechanics themselves would largely be a fairly minor variation on the usual action-adventure formula. But they absolutely killed it with those characters. For the ones that have a part in the main story and who we're actually supposed to have thoughts about, they're all just so full of personality, and they feel like actual people with lives and motivations, rather than just kind of the stock NPCs you get in every RPG. Plus, they're all named after the fruit that they are, and most of their names, at least the ones that I understood, are puns. Now, I know puns are a bit hit or miss with a lot of people, but I love them and they never fail to get a chuckle out of me. And I think regardless of if you like them or not, they really exemplify how much fun the devs were having with this game, and they do a great job setting a bit of a tone. The game doesn't take itself too seriously. It knows the premise is a bit goofy, and so it leans into the goofiness. And that's something I just really admire about a lot of indie devs. They know how to have fun and goof around. But even after all that, it's a really solid little Zelda-like. You explore the area fighting off different variations on the gunk enemies and solving puzzles to unlock further progression, all the while upgrading your character and progressing the story. The one thing I would say would just be to play with a controller. The game really benefits from it over keyboard and mouse controls, which are just not intuitive, at least not to me. But yeah, all in all, it's a really solid little game, and if you're looking for something to scratch that classic Zelda itch, but with a bit of a twist, this is going to be a great pick. So now, let's check out our next game. Isla, a Frosty Glide, is a game I covered a little while ago when it was just a demo, but now we have the full game, and boy did it live up to expectations. So let's drop in. Isla is a game about a young girl with a skate broom looking for her cat. That's it. It's a simple story taking you through the magical world that your mother used to tell you about in search of your best friend. If you've played A Short Hike, it's similar to that, except a totally different movement mechanic, graphical style, and premise. So, not the same at all, except that you're on a journey to the top of a peak in search of something. But I do think it has a very similar impact to A Short Hike. I don't want to get too deep into the narrative and themes and stuff because otherwise I would run out of time for the other games on this list, but I really loved the themes they did explore around loss, growth, and perseverance. If you want a game to make you feel something, this one will definitely go there. But on a more mechanical level, it's a beautiful example of a new age platformer really experimenting with the formula. You start out with every platforming tool you're gonna get, just your skate broom, a magical hybrid between a skateboard and a magic broom. This lets you glide for a short distance and double jump up walls. It's not an entirely complex system, and if you're looking for something to rival Celeste, this isn't going to be that. However, it's also really not trying to. It's a totally different kind of beast. If you're looking for a really solid platformer/collectathon, this is one of the best indie entries I've personally tried. The platforming is just enough of a challenge to motivate you to keep going, and they throw in different puzzles to mix things up as well. They don't just stick to jumping from platform to platform. They definitely incentivize creative thinking, and to a certain extent, they want you to break the game. I loved the demo for this one, and the one complaint I had was that the camera was a bit jank. But I think that's just because I was playing with a mouse and keyboard. And with the help of this little guy, which I will be talking about next week, so stay tuned, I definitely found the camera to be much more manageable. And just in general, I think the game plays far better with a controller. If you're the type of person who really loves quirky takes on magic and adorable witch outfits and snowy hills, you're going to love Isla. And if you're someone who really loves those early 2000s collectathons like Spyro or Mario Sunshine, but you're looking for a more modern and decidedly indie take on that formula, Isla is going to be right up your alley. Playing this game just does such a great job of making you feel cozy, and that's something that is very important to me when it comes to cozy games. If they can't evoke that cozy feeling, it doesn't matter how cozy they should be on paper. It just doesn't work for me. But Isla does exactly that and more. I can't recommend this game higher. It's cute, it's just the right amount of difficult, and it has heart where it counts. This will be a game I know so many people will find incredibly homey, and it's not a particularly long game either. I mean, you can make it as long as you want, really, because there is plenty of side content to check out and keep you busy, but if you want to just beeline the main path, that's also an option. So if this has sounded at all like something that you want to check out, go play it now. I promise you won't be disappointed. And now, with that, let's move on to our next game. Islands and Trains is a great example of a cozy indie sandbox game, but with trains. If you're someone who loves model trains and just finds trains interesting, or maybe wishes you could be back in your childhood playing with your toy train set on your bedroom floor, I think this game is really going to hit for you. The basic mechanics involve a few different placement modes. One for placing a single tile, one for placing a large swath of tiles, one for building vertically, and a mirror of those when deleting objects and tiles. You have a bunch of different categories of objects to pick from at the bottom of the screen, and you can use them however you like to make your little train set as complex or simple as you like. And that's really it. The real fun of the game is sitting down, chilling out, and building a cozy little train system and watching it go. Though you do have to be a bit careful to make sure your trains don't collide, because if they do, they will explode quite spectacularly. But you can place as many or as few trains as you like and build a town, city, or whatever you want, really, around them. It's a really relaxing and low-stress game. It's very similar to the room decoration genre of games, except this time you're building terrain and towns and the like instead of just one room. and I definitely find there to be the same pros and cons as those games tend to have. There were a few times in this game that I wished I could have more granular control of all the placement of various objects. Again, the locked down rotation rears its ugly head, and I really wish the placement of objects wasn't stuck to a grid. I totally understand for placing terrain and train tracks because they need to align right, but for something like where I place a group of cows, chickens, or a park bench, I feel like I should have a bit more freedom than they allow in the game. I find when you stick things to a grid like this, it very much limits the personality of the cities and parks that you can make. But that being said, those things didn't really bother me as much in this game. I don't know if it's because it's such a large scale compared to a single room, or because a lot of cities tend to be set up on grids anyway, so it just kind of feels a bit more right, but whatever the reason, I found myself much easier able to ignore those usual gripes that I have with systems like this. The one complaint I do have is that I did encounter a couple bugs. One time I was unable to delete a train after it crashed with another, and another time I deleted a section of rail and the block deleted, but any other block that I tried to place there acted like that block was still there. So, I don't know, small things like that which could totally be ironed out in future updates. And ultimately, while it's never fun to encounter bugs in a game, they didn't take away from the fun of exploring what I could build and how creative I could be in this little sandbox. So if you're in search of a chill little train-themed sandbox game to while away the hours this fall, this might just be what you've been looking for. And with that, let's check out our next game. I've covered Europa in the past when it was just a demo, and I must say I'm both impressed and slightly disappointed with the full release. Let me explain. Europa was kind of marketed as a Breath of the Wild-like, but set on a decidedly Ghibli world. And both of those things are vaguely true, though the latter more so than the former. When you hear that description, you definitely think sprawling open world with lots of NPCs, a gripping narrative, and really interesting puzzles. However, Europa is definitely not that. And I want to be clear, I think it's a good game, and there are a lot of things that I really love. However, to lean into the Breath of the Wild comparison with the marketing, I think was a bit of a mistake. This game is a linear as hell, story-based adventure through a new and intriguing world with very, very basic environmental puzzles. The game is split up into different sections, and once you move on to the next section, you can't go back. So make sure you've done everything that you wanted to before moving on. But the game moves pretty quickly between these sections, and on the whole, there isn't all that much to do in them. There are about 2 different collectibles in each, a couple emeralds placed up high, and a couple upgrades for your jump pack, which we'll get to in a bit. Now, it's always fun to collect these, and the emeralds are always put up high, so it's a bit of a platforming challenge to figure out how to get up to them, but there really isn't much payoff when you do collect them, and the puzzles that they have you solve are fine. They're just fine. They aren't really all that hard or complex, and I didn't find they made me think all that much, but they were fun enough for the time that it took to solve them. The only one I really grew to dislike was the turret puzzles, where you have to avoid being blasted out of the air while you try to make it to the shutoff switch. In theory, these aren't that bad, but I think they rely on them far too much in my opinion. But okay, that's enough about the things I dislike. What about the good? Well, there's lots of that here as well. I think the world that the devs have created here is absolutely beautiful, and it's definitely a world I would want to explore. And the lore is really quite interesting, and definitely makes me want to know what happened on this planet to bring it to such a state of ruin. And I love the way that they unfold the story through finding different pages of a journal from your dad/maker. I think it adds a really interesting feel to the narrative that you don't get from just talking to NPCs. And the traversal is amazing. They really nailed the feel of flying in this game. Your character feels fluid and weightless in all the right ways, and it always feels great to just absolutely floor the lift and shoot up into the sky, and when you get into the groove with it, it really hits. But all of that just makes me want an open world even more, and makes the lack of that all the more glaring. I think this game is begging for an open world, but for whatever reason, creative or technical, they just decided to go another way. And that's fine. I just think the game really would have benefited from the ability to really let these mechanics stretch their legs, because they really are great. I just feel they're a bit limited by the game that they're in, and I would love to see a sequel to this game where they really let you cut loose with it and explore a fully open world. But what's here is honestly a pretty great little romp. Could it be more? Sure. But it's also not a full price game, and at $15, or I've seen it as low as $7 on sale, it's a really great showing. And I think if you go in with the right expectations, you won't be disappointed. So if this gameplay has intrigued you, I do highly recommend you go check it out. I do think it's worth your time, and if you're in the mood for one of those Ghibli core apocalypses, this won't disappoint. So now, let's move on to our last game. Wanderstop is the much anticipated new game from the developer of the Stanley Parable games. I covered the demo back before release, and now I've actually gotten a chance to play the game proper, and I gotta say, it really nails the landing. Wanderstop is a game about burnout, period. We follow our protagonist on their fall from grace away from her position as the undefeated champion fighter she once was, and now to not even being able to pick up her sword. We find ourselves in a mysterious magical tea shop after passing out in the middle of the woods, and after a bit of convincing, we stay to help run the shop and recuperate enough to pick up our sword and get on with our journey to find the legendary fighter that is supposed to be living somewhere in these woods. So after we don our apron, we get to work trying to fill orders as they come. But this, as you might expect, is no ordinary tea shop. No, of course it's not. This tea shop doesn't charge for the tea and doesn't even expect its patrons to want tea. Instead, it serves as a resting place for people to sit and think, rest, and recuperate. I think this game really understands how to use the cozy genre. The commentary this game makes about overworking yourself and expecting greatness at all times and forever is really quite poignant, and you can tell the people making it definitely have experience with that struggle. But I think this is the perfect way to use the cozy genre, as a bit of a rest stop and a contrast to the fast-paced and ever-present stress of everyday life. And that is exactly what you get here. There are no time limits, no consequences for not getting people their orders, and no punishments for making too much or too little tea. But okay, let's get to the hard and fast mechanics. What do you do in this game? Well, to start, you need to harvest tea leaves and dry them for use. After you have your dry tea leaves, you'll need something to flavor it with. So for that, you plant and harvest different types of crops. And in order to keep things varied, you can crossbreed different plants to make new ones and discover new types of tea. All the different tea recipes have different effects, so when someone comes in and asks you for something to give them energy, you find the ingredient that will do that and give them a tea with that ingredient in it. And if you make a cup and go sit down with it, it will make you ruminate on some aspect of your life. And this lets us get to know our main character better and understand where her need to be the best comes from. And the real joy of this game is all the different wacky characters that come in and tell you about themselves and their lives. These people all feel so alive and full of personality, and it's always fun to hear what is going on with them and what they are doing outside the Wanderstop. I'll keep it to just these first two that you meet, so I don't spoil too much, because that's kind of where a lot of the fun of interacting with these people comes from, discovering what they're going to say next and all their different thoughts and personality traits. I can't recommend this game higher. It absolutely understands the cozy genre, and it uses it to such great effect to comment on our society as well as the cozy genre itself. This dev is always so on it with their satire and commentary, and that is as much present here as it was in the Stanley Parable. Just a little bit less meta. I promise this game won't disappoint. It's a great example of a cozy game and just a great game in general, so do yourself a favor and go give it a shot. It's only $25, and for that price, you get a whole hell of a lot of cozy. But that's just about all we have time for today. I hope you found one or two games here that you want to check out, and if you did, make sure you leave a comment down below. I always love hearing what you're playing, whether it's a game that I cover or not. But other than that, I'll just say thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I hope to see you back here next week. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and as always, happy gaming.